Whichever candidate wins in November, it'll be a steep climb to win over the hearts of Americans. The latest Fox News poll shows both candidates have higher unfavorable ratings than favorable ratings. Just 47% of likely voters have a favorable opinion of Clinton. As we know, she struggled to win key Democratic voting blocs with the same numbers that President Obama saw. So what does that mean for Clinton heading into the final stretch? Thomas Schaller is a professor of American politics at the University of Maryland in Baltimore County, and he joins us now. Thank you so much for joining us, sir.
Great to be here.
Okay, so if she does win, we've been spending the better half of an hour talking and listening about if Donald Trump wins. So let's switch gears. If Hillary Clinton wins the election, how does she govern? How does that look like if she has such high unfavorability ratings?
You know, it's funny, lawyers have what they call a theory of the case for, a trial. And my theory of the case for this election, because it's very fascinating, right? We had the two candidates with the highest negatives, Elizabeth, both win their primaries. For one party, and parties are rational actors, they should never should a party elect the least liked candidate in their field of choices, and yet both parties did. And I think part of that is going back to understanding how Bush and Obama won. Our rising polarization really began in the late 80s and certainly in the 90s in the first Clinton administration. Bush ran as what? A uniter, not a divider. He had a national catastrophe, a security-level catastrophe. The country was no more united after 8 years than they were before. Obama rides election on the waves of the biggest economic crisis since the Great Depression, and the country's no more united at the end of 8 years. So I think the country's kind of done with this. There's no red America, no blue America. As Obama said, no united or divider. And so Hillary Clinton or Donald Trump, doesn't matter which one we talk about, is going to come in with very difficult ability to lead, because I think the two camps, red and blue America, are done with each other, and it's a war of each against the other.
So is she a product of the uniqueness of the election, or is this unfavorable rating really because of her? She spent 30 years in public service. She's been in the public eye. There's been a lot of scandals connected with her. Is it more her inherent character?
If you look at Hillary Clinton's numbers, one of the things she always says in the campaign trail is people like me when I'm working. And if you go back and look at her negatives versus her positives, she's plus 20 during her 4 years as Secretary of State when she's not running for office. As soon as she starts running for office, her negatives did a scissor. Now she's net negative 12 or 13 points. So it's when she's running for office people don't like her, but when she's working, whether it's as First Lady or a U.S. Senator or as Secretary of State, her approval ratings are actually very, very good. So the problem for her is when people view her as a political elected or a candidate, as a woman with ambition, I think, that's when you see her numbers go down. I think that's an unfortunate thing.
Well, she has to get elected first
before
we can get her to work. Correct me if I'm wrong, I read some of your opinions, and you say there's been very little coverage of women voters, and I have a little bit of a bone to pick with that, because do we need to be focusing so much on a woman voter profile just because we have a woman running for president?
Not necessarily. We've had women run for president, but not as a major party nominee. I just thought there would be a little bit more focus on the women's vote this year. I mean, we've had...
Why so?
Well, like I said, this is the first time we've had a major party nominee running for women. We've had two women run for vice president. We've had a disproportionate number of stories really about downscale working class white voters, half of whom obviously are women. And there haven't been a lot of stories out there asking women, what does this mean to have a potential first female president? And I think part of the reason that people are maybe a little less excited about the possibility of a first female president is because her husband was president. But if you know your electoral history, as you probably do, Elizabeth, this notion of winning in your own right. Barbara Mikulski was from Maryland, where I teach, is the first senator in American history to win in her own right. In other words, not following her husband or her father into office. That took till 1986, almost 200 years after we signed the Constitution in 1787. So Hillary Clinton is sort of coming in the way that the pioneering governors, the pioneering congresswomen, the pioneering senators came in on the heels of their husbands dying and retiring. And that's kind of unfortunate. Unlike black Americans who got to see Barack Obama not become president because he stumbled into office because he was vice president. He won in his own right, became the first black president. It would have been cleaner, I think, if Sarah Palin or somebody had won outright. But this is history, as we've seen it in the past. And unfortunately, a woman sometimes needs to have the husband pave the trail for her.
Okay. So you talked a little bit about the women voting. That's an interesting voting block. But what voting block do you find most compelling that maybe you aren't seeing as much enthusiasm as maybe we did in 2008, 2012?
I think one of the biggest questions going into 2016, especially for the Democrats, was, is the Obama coalition going to hold together, particularly African Americans? We saw a record turnout from African Americans and a record Democratic share. No surprise, right? First black presidential candidate. Will that hold for Hillary Clinton? I think that's an open question. And will it hold beyond Hillary Clinton? I think this would have been true no matter who the Democrats had nominated. So I'll be looking for that. Will Latinos be there? They supported her over Obama 8 years ago by about a 2-to-1 ratio. So can Hillary Clinton keep together this coalition of Latino black voters, the youth vote, which we've seen some sort of hemorrhaging a little bit there with Democrats? Is that Obama Obama coalition, and she clearly, Elizabeth, ran as an heir to the Obama era, not to her husband's era.
Right.
And I think she did that strategically because the Democratic Party has moved significantly left in 20 years. Can she keep that coalition together? And we won't know until, of course, November 8th.
Professor, thank you so much. Very interesting. I guess we'll see it. It's about getting people out to the polls. We can talk about enthusiasm. We can talk about rallies. It's whether or not they show up on November 8th.
Of course. You know, and I think you have to remember, Bill Clinton was considered the first black president,
Right.
according to Toni Morrison. We'll see if Hillary Clinton is viewed as the first black woman president. So
We'll see. Professor, thank you so much. Interesting.
Cheers.